Well, here we are again. Thank God it's another Friday edition of Green Rush Live. Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. We have an interesting show today, like we always do. Unfortunately, I was supposed to have Deborah Borchardt as my co-host, but she got called away at the last minute late yesterday afternoon. So luckily, we have an awesome stand-in named Christopher Smith from the American Cannabis Report. So Christopher, thank you so much for stepping up and joining me as co-host today.
My pleasure. You know, anytime I get mentioned in the same sentence as Deb Borchardt, it's a good day for me. So everything is just fine. Thanks.
She really has carved herself out a beautiful reputation in this space.
Well
Speaking
deserved.
of someone who has carved out a beautiful reputation in this space, Michael Correia. He, of course, is the Director of Government Relations for the NCIA, and that's a fancy long title for basically being a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here in 2022.
Hey, Jimmy, it's always great to be here on this rainy Friday in DC. I always enjoy it. Yes, this is the first time in 2022 I was able to be on the show. And hey, Chris, how's it going?
Great, Michael. Good to see you.
Hey,
sorry about the rain. Sorry about the rain you guys are having. Real sorry.
I know with the sunny, being from Southern California, you know, I understand 300 days of sunny weather a year. Like,
I know. Terrible,
I can't even, my brain can't even wrap itself around that, being from New England my whole life. Okay. I mean, I haven't even had a chance to look outside the window, but it started to ice when I got in here around 9:30 this morning. And I have no idea if we have snow out there, if we have rain out there, if we have ice out there, because I'm focused on this show right now.
You're a workaholic, Jimmy, workaholic.
Or sleeping in the studio again.
Some kind of a holic anyway. Michael, what's the latest? Because we know that the Safe Banking Act got a yay and got attached to another bill. And it was supposed to go to a floor vote perhaps today. Have you heard anything?
Oh, yeah. So the Safe Banking Act was attached to another bill related to trade policy and other economic policies called the America Competes Act. And it passed earlier today, I think by maybe 5 or 10 votes, mostly along party line votes, because it dealt with trade with China and other things. And our wonderful friend, Ed Perlmutter from Colorado, attached it. Ed's persistent. He will attach the Safe Banking Act to any piece of legislation that's moving through Congress. So technically, this is the sixth time safe banking has passed the House of Representatives in the last 2.5, 3 years. 3 years.
And is it the sixth time the charm? It doesn't even rhyme.
So here's the thing. You know, it's not a matter of it passes the House and then it's dead in the Senate. It passes the House, and a lot of these bills are sitting in the Senate. And so it's up to the Senate. I mean, they could just pick and choose. Let's pick which safe banking bill we want to have. And so this is going to be yet another vehicle for it to happen. And nothing is stopping them from just bringing up SAFE as SAFE was introduced in the Senate. Senator Jeff Merkley from Oregon has his own bill. Nothing is stopping them from bringing up any bills around SAFE. So to me, you know, it's great. We love Ed attached to another House bill, but at the same time, all the actions in the Senate, and until the Senate does something, it's going to be a broken record.
All right. Well, I got to ask, Senate has are they actually working the Senate? Because nothing's getting done, Michael. It's really frustrating right now to be an American citizen and know that every single progressive piece of legislation dies in the Senate.
Well, you know, as a former House staffer for 15 years, we always used to say that the Senate is where our bills went to go die. And so it's not something that's ever different from the history of why it was set up. It's just a little more. Now we have the information, we have the news, it's right in front of us. It's obvious they can't function. And you sort of see that the Democrats can't even agree on 50 votes on anything, let alone getting 60 votes or let alone working. So it is a little frustrating, especially on the cannabis front.
I know Christopher has prepared a few questions for you, so I'm going to kind of throw it right over to him and let him take it for a few minutes. Go ahead, Christopher.
You know, Michael, we were just talking about the idea that it's sort of a blue versus red, and where the bill is stuck now in the Senate seems to be stuck on party lines. And one thing I would love to hear you talk about, just to really sort of express to the audience, is how cannabis and the industry and the values and the benefits that cannabis has brought to states all across the country, how those values are actually consistent with conservative values, and how we can push this forward and get it out of this sort of party debate and really talk about the values of cannabis to both sides.
Well, one, that was one of the reasons why I joined NCIA and was brought in 9 years ago, was for my background on the Hill. And for someone who worked in Republican politics for 20 plus years, what is their rhetoric? What do they talk about? They talk about freedom. They talk about liberty. They talk about, states' rights, letting the states determine their policy. What better issue than can you talk about than cannabis? That gets down to liberty, that gets down to freedom, that gets down to the states wanting to determine their own policy on cannabis. Ooh, wait, hold on. That's the one time Republicans don't believe in liberty, freedom, or states' rights. And it's very frustrating because that's one issue that you mentioned that completely aligns with their philosophies. And
right. That's what I think. Yeah.
As you've seen throughout the years, in the past few years, this is the most popular issue in any state. When this was in Florida on medical years ago, it was 70+%. It was the highest vote getter of any state ballot initiative or anyone running for statewide office in Florida. When Obama was on the ballot in 2012 in Colorado, it was more popular than Obama. In any state, in California, it was the leading vote getter. So the voters are well out in front of the policymakers in DC, but it doesn't run, historically, it ran in blue states, but you're seeing this in red states. You are seeing states around the union, southern states. The polling is very similar when you break down Democrats versus Republicans. This tends to be more of older voters versus younger voters. And older voters are holding on to those prohibitionist policies because they all grew up in a time where it was bad, whereas younger people, conservative or Democrat, have seen Colorado. I mean, Colorado's going on year 8 or 9 in legalization. And the world, it was like, oh, the world's going to end. The wheels are going to fall off. It didn't. Colorado has had a booming economy. Their tourism is great. Their budget's great. So there's nothing from a policy issue that's shown that this shouldn't be accepted. It's just along the lines of getting, and here's one big bit of advice. Republicans, they want to get elected and they go to the sugar daddies of funders. And one of the biggest sugar daddies on the right was Sheldon Adelson out of Nevada. And he made billions of dollars in casino gambling. And he and his wife, he passed away, but he and his wife basically ran a drug reform or a drug clinic to help kids with abuses. And they are totally anti-drugs. Well, if he's funding and that family is funding hundreds of millions of dollars on the Republican side, it's very hard for a future Republican to want to make some money and go to them and work up the party. And until you get something that can counter that, it's really hard because, future Republicans are going to be looking at that and towing the line. And it's going to take a bit. The voters are coming around, the policymakers are coming around, but it's going to take a little bit before it's on par with what Democrats and the party goes through.
Sure. Yeah, that's got to be a daily thing. And it seems to be very true on the state level. Every time we read about a state like Wisconsin is just in the news, for example, right? Democrats push forward legalization, Republicans stop it. And I did a story recently sort of shooting down the Republicans saying, look at all you're missing for your state. Yeah. Next neighboring states, Illinois, Michigan, 16,000 jobs, 18,000 jobs. Illinois, $500 million worth of tax revenue now into the state, new tax revenue. So they don't have to tax their farmers. They don't have to tax their industry. They have new money, but they're not going for it. So this is an issue here.
I totally agree with you. And I'll tell you a story. So I was in Montana in the summer and I flew in and out of Spokane, Washington, which is on the eastern side. And there's a dispensary right on the border with Idaho. And I stopped by and there were probably 40 cars in the parking lot. And I think 36 of them had Idaho license plates. And we know Idaho is probably the only state in the union that has doing nothing on cannabis. But even their constituents, like Idaho is just missing out from a tax base that they're giving to Washington state and other states because they don't want to admit, and they don't want to admit that they consume cannabis, which consumers have been consuming cannabis for, decades. They've just been doing it hidden. And now you can bring it out. And this is an opportunity. You see in Mississippi, the state legislature has been working. You saw in South Dakota, these red states are passing these because the voters want it. And I don't think it's a partisan issue. I don't want to make it a partisan issue, but I want victories, and I want victories. And until people wise up, it's going to be the Democrats are going to be leading on this and are going to be benefiting. And Republicans need to come around and embrace this because I think that they can neutralize the issue and go fight your wars on other wedge issues, like neutralize the cannabis issue.
I've said before that I think that one of the big mistakes that Donald Trump made on domestic policy is not legalizing cannabis. If he had done that, it would have shaken the race up in an unbelievable way. And he would have had such an advantage by being so bold. I mean, it would have been right on brand. It was bold. It was unexpected. It was, a breakthrough. It could have been, right? It was right there for him, and he didn't take it.
So, I'm a history buff and political history buff. We all know it was that anti-communist Richard Nixon that opened up trade with China. Yep. And why? Because he could. I totally agree with you. It was an opportunity for Trump to do something outside of what the norm was and to change the narrative. And he could have had that protection. Whereas Obama, I don't think could have legalized cannabis because he would have gotten crucified. Whereas a person like Trump on the right could have said, this is such a big issue, this transcends the party, and I'm going to take a big, gigantic, historic step. And it definitely, I had thoughts that maybe, in 2018 or 19 or 20, he would do something like that. It never materialized, but sometimes politicians aren't as bold as I would like them to be. And that was an example, but I totally agree with you.
I don't think they're bold at all. I think they're risk averse.
They're risk averse, Jimmy.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. I just want to give a comment. We just got one of the nicest comments in our chat room that I think we've ever had from Renegade Knight. And basically he said, well, he loves our hard work and insight. You sound more legit than CNN or any news operation out there. That's the first time we've been compared to CNN. I'll tell you that. And they're leaderless right now.
I thought for a minute he was going to say, what a wonderful paint job my wife just did in the office. She loved the blue, but hey, I'll take the comparison to CNN.
Yeah, that was very nice. And he said, what we really need to do is get weed in the hands of our governor, our senators, and have them chill out. Yeah. Actually, it's funny, Michael, one of the things, and I was talking about this earlier to somebody today, we both have heard, all of us have heard, cannabis has saved my life. Cannabis has changed my life. Are there any senators that have any family members that have had a good experience with cannabis as a strong medicine? Because sometimes that changes even the most hardcore prohibitionist.
No, I agree. And, NCIA just recently concluded our virtual lobby days. Normally we would do our in-person lobby days in DC. Maybe
I was there once.
You were there in May years ago. We haven't done it because the Capitol closed because we're doing virtual. And one of the things I like to do is tell stories, have people tell stories that are relatable. Right. And it's not a theoretical, it's someone, because we all have kids, we all have siblings, we all have parents and grandparents that maybe have cancer or PTSD or some issue that they're benefiting from. And it's one of these things where if there's a story and there's a connection where the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, wow, you benefit from cannabis. And it takes it away from the us versus them narrative that had been so true for like the 80s and many decades that normal people don't consume cannabis. I've talked to a lot of people, politicians, and they will tell personal stories of something they witnessed, a family that came in, or someone, a relative, or even relatives who are in the industry. And so it is something that I think makes it more relatable for a lot of these politicians, and it destigmatizes it and makes it easier.
Yeah. Roger Stone, Trump advisor, and sort of general scoundrel, but came out pro-cannabis in the early days. And I thought that was really remarkable. But I knew there must be a family connection. He admitted that, actually. He said that was why. A family member had cancer.
Yeah.
and had survived well, and lived much longer and was comfortable, and he saw it with his own eyes, and he said, that's it. It's a good decision. And he went for it. It was completely against the party line. It was completely against, Jeff Sessions. It was against all that.
Yeah.
And he said, I believe, I've seen it. I believe it. And I thought that could have been a breakthrough. We see John Boehner join in. We see William Weld join in. We see people like that. And we go, come on, more. Bring them over.
And that's the thing. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take those personal stories of, I look at, I'll give you an example of veterans. You're a veteran who served your country, and maybe you were injured permanently or mentally or physically. And the fact that the VA doesn't even think twice of addicting you to every known opioid, but hello, cannabis that could deal with pain, that could deal with mental issues. No, we won't even have that discussion. And the fact that you see people suffering, and that's the worst thing, is just seeing anyone suffer. And it really frustrates me that there's politicians out there that want to get between a person and their doctor, or a family member and their doctor. Like, that should just be between those two. And if one decides that plant-based medicine is the way to go, who should stop them? And it's really frustrating that there tends to be these prohibitionist politicians who are stopping them, which is sad. But hey, that's why they pay me, and why I'm fighting is to change these rules.
Oh,
that's great.
We certainly appreciate that. Another reason that people get turned on to or get exposed to cannabis, unfortunately, is when it is a end of life issue, palliative care or hospice care. It almost seems to be like the last resort. If you can't get morphine, you can get some weed. And again, we see this a lot, but what are we going to do about that? Because unless these senators end up in hospice or palliative care, I don't think they're ever going to try this or even take the time to learn about it.
Yeah. And I like to tell the story. I'm not old enough to remember alcohol prohibition, but think about it, 80, 90 years ago,
right?
A politician sipping wine or drinking a beer at a reception would have been illegal during that time, but no one even thinks twice. Now, every politician goes to a reception, unless they're a teetotaler, throws back a drink or something. And the fact that cannabis could be viewed the same way, why would it be different? Now, I would love, Jimmy, to have my first politician come out. I think there was one recently. Maybe it was Nancy Mace that said she dealt.
Yeah, it was Nancy Mace.
Who used it to deal with some stresses and traumas in her life.
She was assaulted as a teenager.
We need more politicians coming out to say they personally used it, and not have to worry about the blowback or the stigma for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, we love the image of the gentleman in Louisiana who's running for Senate, who decided to use the opportunity to smoke a joint on camera.
I want to get that guy to speak at our next conference. I'm definitely intrigued. The fact that he did that, I think, is wonderful.
It was great. It led our news. It went viral. Even George Jage said he would vote for this guy if he lived in Louisiana.
We all got to send him some money. We all got to send him some money.
And can I talk about money and politics for a second here? And sure. I think people know that I'm on. You could probably guess which political party that I'm aligned with. Okay, but I'm not happy with it, and I'm going to explain why. Every day in my email box, I'm getting asked for money, $3, $10, $15, whatever it is. And I'm like, the Democrats seem to really embrace the dollar bill because all they want to do is spend it, it seems. That being said, I didn't give any of that money because I don't believe in giving money to politicians. I just don't. I think there are enough people out there. I think money corrupts the politicians. I think money destroys our values as a democracy. That's my opinion, of course. And but I thought I would at least be fair and taking a shot at the party because leave me alone. I mean, I know how to unsubscribe too, guys. Don't worry. But still, it is very frustrating, and you see it. I see it on a daily basis when I come in and I look at my emails and have to get rid of them all. So you
should try to be a lobbyist that everyone has your email list. I have 500 emails every day begging for money. So I know what it is. And, you can have your thoughts like you do on money in politics. it's there. It hasn't gone away. The Supreme Court has said it's legal. I don't think it's going away. And until some major change happens, it is what it is. And someone's giving them money, and those politicians are listening to those people. And what I've tried to do in the cannabis industry is to get our industry people more savvy when it comes to politics and how politics works. And money is not an end all be all. You don't dangle money in front of someone and then they change their opinion. But politicians need campaigns. They need campaign staff. They need advertisement. They need to do this. Those cost money. So for people to get elected and to be in these positions of power to affect change and do something, it's costly. And I want people, we look at our great friend like Ed Perlmutter, if he wasn't there, who would be fighting for us? And they're there. And that's where people should be embracing. You mentioned the guy in Louisiana. Okay. I mean, can you imagine if millions of people started giving him money and his coffers just blew up of the change he could do. So I'm not pessimistic on money. I mean, there's too much money from too few people,
right?
But at the same time, it's an opportunity for all of us to say, we really like this person. I'll use AOC as an example. Here she was working as a waitress,
bartender, yeah.
Working as a waitress in a bar or something like that. And 4 years later, she's raking in millions of dollars because people assume, like what she's selling is affecting change. And that's I guess money is a way to show your excitement, on something like that. And
I guess so. Hey, and lastly, we're past the 420 bewitching hour on Friday. So if you're out there, enjoy. But I do want to ask one more question. There are rumors now, there's ripplings that the Chuck Schumer bill may actually get introduced in 2022. What are you hearing about that?
So we just talked with because we just concluded our lobby days this week. We talked with a lot of these Senate offices, and basically the main writers of this bill were in the Senate Finance Committee, and in the fall they spent because Chairman Wyden or Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon. Yep. Chairman, they're the main tax writers and did a lot of this writing. They were spending most of their fall on the Build Back Better program. And that was something that consumed a lot of the oxygen in DC with congressional staff. Their hope was that would have been passed in November or December, and then they could pivot to getting back to this comprehensive reform bill and then work through all the comments and details and then make an introduction. That, has been delayed. And so they are delayed. They had always hinted at dropping it maybe in the springtime.
Right.
And so I'm still holding them to springtime. We know Chuck Schumer loves media. And so why not around 420? So, I'm holding out hope, fingers crossed that they're going to get some people to drop it around April or something. But there isn't some secret plan to hold it. It's just a matter of bandwidth that their energy was on other issues in Congress. And they're getting around to it. And they did say when they drop it, they want to have a very thorough discussion on it. And that to me leads to hearings. And so there's an opportunity we're pushing, having some hearings in the Senate in the later spring or summer to talk about this issue. Because trust me, I want them to drop this bill as soon as possible so we can see what's in it and what are the tax rates and what does the regulatory structure look like so we can either support it or oppose it or bring our questions up, because we gave 40 pages of responses to their questions. And NCIA, we want to be a thorough thought leader on some of these things and do what's right for the industry and be good lobbyists and advocates.
Well, there you go. And again, Michael, I appreciate your hard work in the trenches down there in DC. And I appreciate your commitment to our show, coming on and bringing us up to date on what's going on down there. I will say that the rest of this show, we're going to be turning over to women in the cannabis media space. So, and Christopher and I hope we'll just kind of sit back and let the women talk about what they have to face in the media. So I appreciate you coming on. I thank you again. We're going to take our 420 break a little late this afternoon, but we will be back on the other side after Jonathan Edwards sings one of my favorite songs, Shanty, Don't Go Away. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Difference is building a solution for that individual, not just a custom, here's a box, here's a video, here's how you make your VMS. We custom design and custom build every situation for exactly what the customer needs. And we keep the cost low. We have multiple tiers, as far as what you're looking at on the cost side of things. If you want a one-time, where you just pay one initial cost, we have that. If you want to maintain your system and have the highest protection and highest capabilities and highest upgrades at all times, we have different plans for you. But we scale it so it's scalable and affordable 100%.
Pro Cannabis Media programming is available live and on demand on our Facebook page at Pro Canna Media, on Instagram at Pro Cannabis Media, on LinkedIn also at Pro Cannabis Media, on YouTube and YouTube Live on Pro Cannabis Media, Twitter at Pro Canna Media, and on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media. So like, share, and subscribe to all of our content, newsletters, and shows live or on demand.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.